Huh?
I like that.
Want to go?
The repurposing of that.
Well, welcome everybody. Appreciate y'all being here tonight. My name is Grant Russell. I am a councilman at large, live in the neighborhood at 3rd and Main Street. My sons and I delivered newspapers on Stadium for a decade plus. And sometimes on West McPherson and the Courier needed some help with additional coverage. I'm also the chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee. I'm here to, I do send regrets from Mayor Murray. She is out of town on some personal emergency business, family business, and would ask for, won't go into details, but would ask for prayers for the mayor and her family. And with that, I wanted to, just a quick introduction, welcome. I appreciate y'all coming out here to learn more about this project and get your questions answered. Really wanted to show today is going to be Matt Cordonier. He is the head of Hancock Regional Planning. Hancock Regional Planning provides planning services to both the city and in the county and all, pretty much all the county subdivisions and all the villages. And so as a result, the rezone process goes through Matt's office, Hancock Regional Planning, and then works its way through the city. So Matt's going to kind of run the show, and then I think we're going to do Q&A afterwards.
That's correct. I have a presentation, and then we will jump into Q&A. We do ask when with people with questions or comments if they could come forward to the microphone, introduce yourself, and state your comments. We are live streaming this, so if you're not speaking into a microphone, folks at home cannot hear you. Perfect. So even though the mayor's not here, there are a majority of council members here. So they will be able to hear your concerns. And as I go through the process, they'll be voting on this tomorrow. So the folks who will be voting and deciding the ultimate fate of this project are in this room, so your voices will be heard. Again, I'm Matt Cordonier. I'm the director of Hancock Regional Planning. Our office reviewed the rezoning and the site plan for this project. We have Andrew Yates to my left. He's the developer, and Dan Stone is the civil engineer for the project. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the presentation, and then after that we will just go through question and answer. So here we go. Message from the mayor. Goal of the meeting: to educate the interested parties on the facts of the proposed project. She said she was not here to convince you to agree with her, but am trying to share with you the details of the project and why she voted in support of it. So just one general slide. What is zoning? Zoning laws refer to specific rules and regulations for pieces of land enforced and created by municipalities on how land should be developed and acceptable methods for development. The goal of zoning is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. So this is the zoning map of the city of Findlay. I've highlighted in red the project site. Today this site is zoned O1 office. It has been zoned office for at least the last 12 to 15 years. It was part of the Lake Cascades PUD as Lake Cascades developed. This is McPherson. This is Main Street. This is the empty field across from the project site. So just to give kind of some context to the site that we're looking at. The black is heavy industrial, that's Cooper Tire. So I'm going to go over the process of what we've gone through so far and what steps are left to be completed. The rezone was submitted in May. June 1st, we put out public notices, which include the yellow signs that we put out at the site. And we sent out letters to every property that's within 250 feet of the proposed site. On June 15th, Planning Commission and the Planning and Zoning Committee both recommended approval to City Council. So At the June 15th meeting of Planning Commission, the rezoning request was presented, it was discussed, and it was recommended that it be approved. July 5th, City Council had the first reading of the rezoning ordinance. July 18th, we had the second reading of the proposed rezoning. And August 1st, which is tomorrow, we have the third and final reading of the proposed ordinance. At 5:55, there's an official public hearing at City Council tomorrow, in which it will be opened up for public comment about anything about this rezoning. If approved at tomorrow's meeting, the zoning change will go into effect 30 days after August 1st, which would be August 31st. If it's denied, it dies right there. So that was the rezoning from O1 to M2 multifamily. So there's one step left, and that's the meeting tomorrow, August 1st. Site plan. The site plan was submitted in June. On June 30th, we put out an additional second sign that said site plan review, and we sent out a second set of letters to the public. July 13th, City Planning Commission met and discussed the plan, and they approved it with conditions. The rezoning the conditions were, must have the rezoning approved, and the Board of Zoning Appeals will need to grant the needed variances. And there's 2 variances that are needed, which I will discuss. August 10th, the Board of Zoning Appeals will hear the applicant's request for variance. I believe there are two variances that are requested for. One is for density, and I'll have a slide on that in just a minute, and the other are the amount of parking spaces provided. So this is the process. Every step of the way has been and was a public meeting available for public comment. Overview of what City Planning Commission reviews: compliance with zoning regulations, compatibility with surrounding area, intensity, traffic flow, density, scale, drainage, fire protection, aesthetics and architecture, landscaping, parking, pedestrian access, lighting. The list goes on, but that gives you a sense of what we're looking at when we're evaluating projects. So I worked with one of my coworkers. We wrote the staff review for the project. This is a presentation that we give to the Planning Commission. And for the rezoning and the site plan, staff recommendation was to approve the rezoning and to approve the site plan. And so I'm just going to provide you with some of the bullet points on some of the items that we were thinking about while reviewing this. For the rezoning, one of the first things that we looked at is what could be built today. It's zoned Office O1. The O1 district would allow for up to a 4-story office building on that site, a dentist office, a laboratory. So those things could be built today on the site. And so we viewed the move to multifamily as a step down in intensity. And then
Where would that be?
I'll finish this and hold that, and we'll go through them. I think I know where you're going. And it's not a huge drop in intensity. It's not going from office to single family, which would be a bigger drop. But, you know, an office building with workers coming in and out every day, and the size that could be built, we viewed it as a small step down in intensity. Secondly, the site is located on the periphery of the neighborhood. It abuts a substation to the west, Lake Cascades Parkway to the south, a single-family home to the east. So those were the main points that we were looking at with the rezoning. On the site plan, the project is tall. It's 3 stories. We viewed this as being offset, that by the fact that it's set back 120 feet from the roadway, which will help lessen the impact than if it was directly up on the roadway. McPherson is 4 lanes. It's really overbuilt for the amount of traffic that's on it. So we viewed that the roadway system was more than capable of handling the increased traffic. We had concerns about the architecture. It's the current state of the building. It's by the YMCA. It doesn't look like much if you drove past it today. So, but working through the process, seeing the renderings, my understanding is, and Andrew can speak more to it in a little bit, but they're really just using kind of the shell of it and then really reworking every other part of the building. Density. So I'm just going to skip to a slide I created. So the code says you can have 1 unit for every 3,500 square feet of site. So when we take the size of the proposed site, you could have 16 apartment units on that site. The developer, what the code does not differentiate between if you have 4 bedrooms in an apartment or 1 bedroom in an apartment, it's still just 1 unit. So one thing that staff reviewed and thought was positive is that it's single bedroom units. It's 24 single bedroom units, but that does not meet the code. And that's one thing that you'll have to get a variance for. The code would allow 16 3-bedroom units. Oh, and now you put me on the 3 times 10 is 30, 54? 16 times 3. 48. Thank you. The code would allow 16 units of 3 bedrooms, and then you could have 48 bedrooms, twice as many bedrooms, and you would not need a variance. So it does exceed what the rules allow for, and he'll be requesting a variance, but the number of bedrooms is smaller than what would potentially be allowed on the site. Through the whole process, we discussed a lot of elements of the site plan, really focusing on increasing vegetation. We looked at whether it was best to have the entrance where it is today or if we moved it, location of the building. There was a lot of back and forth over a couple of months trying to get the site honed into what would be least intrusive to the neighborhood, but still be a good addition to the neighborhood. So that was some of the thinking that myself and the staff had while reviewing the project. This is a 2-scale rendering of the building located on the site, just to give everyone a sense of scale, what it would look like. So this will be available. This is the site plan. This is the building footprint right here. This is McPherson. A few things not shown on this. The developers agreed to mounding along McPherson, mounding along McPherson between sidewalk and parking lot with landscaping to create landscaping softening along McPherson, fencing and landscaping on the east side along the driveway, and fencing and landscaping along the west side of the property between the substation and detention area. I've heard concerns about drainage. All projects that go through City Planning Commission are required to have drainage calculations. Those drainage calculations are reviewed and approved by the city engineer. In this case, what those regulations call for is a dry detention area, water that falls onto the parking lot area, that falls onto the site, will be routed into the detention area, in which it then is what they call metered out, which it goes out slower than it comes in. Generally, and Dan can speak further if there are questions about drainage, but generally It's designed to drain out over a longer period of time, like a 24-hour period of time. So the water gets to the pond quickly and then leaves slowly. This is a dog park for use by the residents. And this is the substation here to the left, and then the single-family home to the right. Another concern that I had heard, what happens if this is built and something new comes along? Can they turn it into a hotel or motel? The answer is no, they cannot do that without rezoning the property or going through city council and city planning commission. The M2 multifamily allows for single-family homes, duplex, triplex, and apartments. Those are the main uses. Anything deterring from that would need to go through further processes through the city of Findlay. And on the record, I would never be supportive of a commercial use like a motel or hotel at that site. So here are some renderings. So at this point, I think I'd like to open it up to questions and answers. And I think if someone has, I don't want everyone to be repeating the same points over and over again. If someone else has mentioned a point that you're concerned about, you may just want to acknowledge that. But at this point, I think we'll go into questions. If you have questions, please come up to the podium and we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Linda Vanderbilt, and I live on Stadium Drive.
Okay.
My first question is, you said that the majority of city council was here today. I don't know all of them, but the members that I do know are not here. My understanding is there's 11 members of city council. Could you point out the members here so that we know that there are the majority here?
There's 10.
There's 10?
I'm here. I saw Beth Warnicki.
One,
And
two,
3 gentlemen up here. Jeff Wolfser had stepped out a little bit ago.
Okay. But the decision would be made tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay. I love that all these people are here, but I want to make sure that we all know that tomorrow is the night that the decision would be made.
That's
that we
correct.
would need to be there. Have there been any scientifically administered data-driven surveys regarding traffic or water for us? Not specifically drainage, but that's a big influx of water leaving, or I guess outflux of water from our neighborhood. Have they been studies to make sure that there will be sufficient water for all the rest of us? The traffic in particular, I was spoke to the engineer's office. I can't remember his name right now. Jacob Mercer told me that he didn't feel that there needed to be any kind of traffic pattern because it was 4-lane. But no, living in the area, I know that all of those residents are not going to be going to Main Street on that 4-lane stretch of road. They're going to be going down Summit, Hurd, and Stadium Drive, all of those areas through there. So have there been any data-driven studies on either of those?
So for drainage, yes.
Not for drainage, but for I teach math, so I don't know anything about plumbing or all of those things.
Understand.
But there has been raised concern about whether or not it would affect our water pressure, those types of things.
So the engineering department reviews, we meet as a group, water department, engineering, fire department, zoning. We have pre-meetings about all the items on the agenda, and no one had concerns about water pressure or the site.
So there doesn't need to be any kind of study regarding that, or
No, the
no
engineers-
numbers, none of that.
No, and generally, we know where there's water pressure issues, and that's based upon elevation. Generally, northwest side of town is higher elevation. So, in general, for no projects, unless they're in troubled areas,
Okay.
have water pressure analysis done.
How about the traffic?
No, there was no specific traffic study done. I would say probably 80% of projects do not have engineered traffic studies. Depending on their location and the proposed intensity, Raising Cane's did a traffic study. And there's a few others. In this case, we're looking at adding 24 bedrooms, and it was viewed that a traffic study would not be needed for that little of intensity.
Okay. Seems to me that the most direct route to 75 is going to be down Hurd or Summit. And those are very narrow roads as they are. That's why I questioned that. Can you tell me if the building was sold by the YMCA to you? There has been talk about, I have heard from more people and have not been able to verify or deny, that the building was sold to you for $1.
So there was a bill of sale, and it, in essence, that was the case. And the reason was the way it was viewed is this can save the YMCA money and demolition costs.
Mm-hmm.
It allows the opportunity for this to make sense, to move this and not just maintain 12 units, but add, in this case, potentially 12 more. So again, housing being needed, specifically one bedrooms, from what I've seen, made a lot of sense. It seemed like a win-win-win case scenario.
That raises some concern with our mayor being on the zoning and on the YMCA board and how all of that works. And I think one of our frustrations is that we feel that a lot happened in the background and it was just assumed that this would go through. In fact, when I spoke to different people who are city leaders, they told me my concern should be with negotiating with the investor. The mayor told me that when I came up looking for information about the petition. And she came in and graciously invited me into her office. And her question for me was, what questions do you want me to ask the investor? And my questions were not for you. My questions were how to best relay our concerns to city council. I've had several people tell me that our best interest would be served by negotiating with the investor. But we wanted to make our voices heard to city council because our understanding was that you were the ones that would make the decision, that the decision had not yet been made. So there was no need to negotiate with an investor. So that was one of my frustrations with all of this.
That is a correct statement. No decision has been made. It gets its third and final reading tomorrow, and a vote will be taken. And if 6 of council agree, then the rezoning will happen.
Do you find it interesting that I would be told by so many city leaders that our needs would be best served by negotiating with an investor instead of communicating with city council?
That means,
Nor do I.
As a councilman who lives at 3rd and Main, I have been contacted by a total of 0 people about this project.
Well, we are all here to contact
Yeah,
you.
I understand that, but nobody has reached out and talked to me individually about the project, and I live in the neighborhood, so I just.
In some of our defense, I just found out about it on Facebook last week.
I found out about 2 weeks ago.
I talked to my next door
What-
neighbor.
what-
He never saw the sign next door. So the information that was said to be put out was not put out. And it was.
One thing I would like to interject.
250 feet.
Okay, real quick. What we'll need to come
The signs have been removed.
to the microphone so that we can have a good conversation, keep this orderly. I put out the signs myself. I put those out on the days that I said, and we sent out the information.
I
So,
go by there twice a day and my neighbors have went by there. They were not readily and obvious.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Why were they removed before the city council made the decision?
Because those are notices for City Planning Commission.
Okay.
City Council does not put out signs. City Planning Commission puts out signs. So the day after, the morning after the Thursday meeting, that Friday morning, I brought the signs in.
Does it seem odd that someone could sit on multiple boards and chairman other committees and not have a conflict of interest?
I can't speak to that.
Okay, that's one
And
of
the
my
mayor's-
concerns.
The
And I know
mayor's
she
not
is
here
not here.
to be able to
Absolutely.
discuss, so I'd like to kind of keep it project-based.
Sure.
One thing, Linda, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
please.
So, again, I live here. I have no intention of doing something that isn't good for the community. We sent this to should have gone out to, how many people? Quite a few people. Did you guys receive these?
None of us. That's not true. I know one person who lives across
This went
the
out
street.
to,
They live across the street.
Yeah.
But this will impact me and I don't live across the street. And that empty field is a Donnell Stadium practice field. My students are on that field all the time.
Yep.
That's not an empty field. That is taken care of by the Donnell Foundation, who has been wildly generous to our community and who has put special interest, money continually feeding into that particular area. So I think it is unfair and disrespectful to call that an empty field, because it is not. It is very important to our community and to the Donnell family, who has been wildly valuable to our community.
And we sent them notice of the project. Like I said, we sent
But
notices.
those of us who live right next to the practice field.
There is a limit to which the city can send out notices to surrounding property owners. 3 years ago, we expanded it. It used to be just the adjacent property owners. It's the surrounding 250 feet around the whole perimeter, which I think was 37 households that we sent letters to.
And I proactively, before those letters went out, again, live in the community, I wanted to be proactive in this. I sent out a letter to those 37 house, or we not sent. My project manager went to each house and knocked on doors if they weren't there. Granted, it was the weekend. He put them in mailboxes, so 37 families.
Was that this
could have
last
received-
weekend?
No, this was in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is May or, yeah. And I can pass around if people want to take a look at it. I guess to his point, like I was a little frustrated that no one's come to me, not one phone call, email, question. I've got all of our contact
We don't have
information.
any business with
Okay,
you.
okay.
Our business is with city council.
Okay.
Eventually, if they vote in your favor, then we would absolutely. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to you. I'm also a landlord. I also understand, and I understand that there's a need. We understand that's not going to always be a green space. We very strongly feel that this is not the appropriate use for that. This cannot handle our community, our neighborhood. This does not fit in any way, shape, or form. Not in visuality. It does look like a blue roof in, I guess. It's single unit. We have already had a trap house on Stadium Drive that took more than 4 months to be eradicated. That was horrible for our neighborhood. It was incredibly difficult to get rid of. We've already seen what could happen when people come in with no link to our community and set up home base right there. We're right next to 75. We're direct access. My children have been raised there. My grandchildren are there. My students, who I call my kids, are right there. So we need to be very careful about who it is that we're inviting in. I'm stepping off because there are things that I need to say to the entire city council, and I am really emotionally attached to this, and I hear it coming up in my voice, and I don't want that to be. And it is nothing personal. It is just simply, we are very passionate about our neighborhood and our desire to make sure that we don't lose that Donnell neighborhood feel, and that it isn't lost to one investor, because we are all investors here, and we have all put our time, money, energy for decades into this neighborhood. And our voices need to be at least equally heard to a single investor going in simply for financial gain.
My name is Deborah Pregabon, and I live on Hurt Avenue.
Can we, sir, is that mic turned on?
Am I too short? Yeah, I'm too short. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. I echo most of what Linda said. And just to clarify something, this project, for whatever reason, flew under the radar. I found out about it on probably maybe June 17th, only because there was a little blurb in the Courier on the second page, and it wasn't even the head story. It was about the Airbnb. When we found out about it, weren't sure what the progression was as it worked through the process. But we went around and collected just, what was it, last week?
Yes.
In just a few doors we knocked on, got 171 signatures on a petition against this. We do not want this in our area. And to echo what Linda said, it is not appealing to look at. It does not fit. It doesn't even blend. And my question is, why in the world would you move a building instead of doing something nice for the neighborhood and constructing something nice like you did in LB, which I believe is where you live, correct? Okay.
Yeah, so as far as aesthetics, this to kind of explain why I would, it's a little crazy. So the existing building is primarily up to code. So in order to move it to a new location, that can make financial sense so that I can get cost per unit down and make it attractive to potential residents. Now, that being the case, when it gets moved, assuming it does, all the siding will be complete, like, it won't be a mansion style anymore. The roofing will be taken off. It'll have a whole new aesthetic. Interior, we're going to basically completely redo the inside. It will be indistinguishable from completely new construction. So the reason is to potentially save that building because it can also make this project make more sense. And again, if you were to look at any one of the 24 units, you won't know which one has a 35-year-old frame versus a. So that's.
So I think most of the neighborhood, or at least the individuals I spoke with, it wasn't the fact that something was being built in our neighborhood, it's what is going there. And you're taking possibly 48 people and condensing them onto that one little lot. So that's why, are there any written studies that we can review as far as water? I know when they built the Donnell building, we lived in our house since 1988. We started having problems in 2015 with water in our basement. And I think it's from, the downflow of it. So I'm just wondering what's going to happen when possibly 48 more people are squeezed onto a lot, using toilets, using showers, using sinks, using dishwashers, which brings up another question. Do these units have a washer and dryer?
They not only will have a washer dryer hookup, they will have washer and dryer. These are going to be, again, these are going to have granite countertops. These are going to be, speaking of the nice units in LB, they will be very similar to the same layout, not same size, but aesthetically, it's the same. It's going to be very comparable.
It looks like a motel, like an old motel, but Howard Johnson's. Okay, thank you.
One other thing I will add on to the other, as far as you mentioned water runoff, I assume, Dan, after this would be done, would that be a better than it was prior, as far as water?
Basically, the design will have it to be as it is today. So with the water runoff, it's going to be collected, and like Matt stated, it'll be slowly released from the site.
So the loss or the lack of green space, they built the new Donnell, which obviously took up green space. And I know that we started having problems after that. We have a sub pump now, but I guess I would like to review something that's going to assure us that we're not going to have flooding problems in our homes, because we already seem to have a problem. And to me, this is just going to compound that problem. But so, am I understanding there is no written? Can I maybe share your calculations? My son's an engineer, he might be able to help.
So the drainage calculations are public record. Anyone's welcome to see those.
Are they specific to each area, or are they general?
It's specific to this site.
And where
so-
would I find that?
I can email, if you email me in my email, I can put it up. I'll give my
Okay.
email at the end. If you email me tomorrow morning, I'll send you a copy of the drainage calculations.
Okay. All right. And then just one more thing and I'm done. Just getting back to the fact that this seemed to fly under the radar, I just think it shows an utter disregard for the individuals that have lived on the south side in that area, some for decades.
My name's Lori Betcher, and I also live on Hurd Avenue. And I've got a question about the logistics of all of this. I'm looking at your apartment building here that is supposedly somewhat to scale. It's supposed to be 24 apartments, right?
Sure.
What is the parking that you are looking for this lot?
So that's part of the variance I'm requesting. So I have another location that has 24 units, so exact same unit count. It has 38 spaces, and that particular place has at least 6 to 8 empty spaces at all times.
But if
That
you
being the case, those also have not one-bedroom apartments. They have 16 one-bedrooms and 8 two-bedrooms. So it has more bedrooms, and it still is overkill on parking. So in this case, I'm requesting it be 41, which is 3 more than the other place, with 8 less 2 bedrooms. So it is more than ample for the residents.
It would be more than ample if you're looking at apartments that may only have one person in there. But if you have 2 people that are living in a 1-bedroom apartment and they both have 2 cars, where are they all going to park? They're going to be short some spaces here.
Yeah, so statistically, you're going to have about 1.3 to 1.5 residents per unit. That being the case, as far as parking, you're not going to have an average of 2 people for every single bedroom. So when it comes to parking, again, what I am requesting as far as the variance will be sufficient. It would not make sense for me to build it slightly under. So this will be about 15% more than would be absolutely needed.
People come over to visit. Where are they going to park?
That is factoring that. The people come and go, people work second shift, so on and so forth. So you're never going to have a situation where everybody's there all at the same time.
I would like to think that could be true, but I'm just looking at the fact that, right now you can't say who is going to sign up to rent on this. There could very easily be more people than there are parking places. And where are they going to park? They can't park on McPherson right there, and it's going to really add to the traffic.
So it actually is
flow.
not going to be the case where there would be more people than spaces. The reason being, according to fair housing, the most I have to permit per unit is 2. So theoretically, if every single person did have 2 units, or every unit had two people, and we would only allow one vehicle per person, it would still suffice.
You still may be short those 7 spaces if they're all there at once.
That is
just doing the math there.
Ordinarily unlikely.
The other thing that I want to address is at the very beginning, you had talked about density. Looking at what is, low density, high density, you thought that this might be, a good choice, and that other choices would be office buildings, or I can't remember exactly what you said. The big difference between an office building and this is people are coming and going 24/7 out of this building. That's not going to be happening in an office building. And you look at the amount of people who live on McPherson now, and you look at this building, it's almost like you have doubled the population on McPherson Street just by adding one more building in here. So I live on Hurd Avenue, as I said before. I am envisioning Hurd Avenue as being used as a freeway to go back and forth. And I worry about the speed limits. I worry about the narrow road. There are just a lot of concerns here. And, I just wanted to bring up some of them that I'm concerned about at this point. So thank you.
I forgot already. Hi, I'm Tom Bowman. That little stub of 2-rail fence is my house where I live. The 2-rail, you can just see the last 2 posts of it. That's a pretty big building to be looking out your front window at. It's just too big a building for that lot. When this first started, numerous of us got our heads together and just were talking, and it's like, don't have anything wrong with a couple of duplexes that fit in to the whole rest of the neighborhood, but that's an awful lot right there. That's an awful lot right there. Question that was someone else was going to ask you, what data indicates there's a need for 1-bedroom units in this area?
So speaking to the 1-bedrooms, again, I had acquired another place that had 1 and 2 bedrooms, and just anecdotally, we had 16 units. They filled quicker than we could rehab them, and we continue to have demand for that. So 24 units would not be a concern. And what was the other part of your question?
Total shouldn't change its own. Everything should not.
And then the other, as far as the location, the same reason you guys enjoy living there is a reason it would be attractive to residents. It's close to 75, it's close to downtown. I can respect the fact that you guys are here. I mean, it's a nice area, and as far as some of the aesthetics, there will be hopefully a connection to the bike path that is over there. There's going to be additional things that I'm going to be doing that are nice for the residents, so this can be a nice place for young professionals.
Yeah, but you still can't get rid of, you know,
So there
the size
was
in the woods. Some duplex type, single story, and that's not big enough for what you want to do. So the easiest thing is to get a bigger lot someplace else. That's not hard to figure out.
So, and at the end of 2019, our office contracted with DeSalvo Development. They conducted a Hancock County City of Findlay housing survey, market analysis. And so and I can send you a copy of it, but they do market analysis all over the country. They're very familiar with Findlay. So we contracted with them to do a housing analysis, and their analysis is that, you know, Findlay is about 500 apartments short of what the demand is, and several hundred single-family homes short of what the demand is. So that's the analytical analysis that you're looking for.
Why is the population actually shrinking a little bit? At least the school population has shrunk.
So a lot of these residents work in Findlay and commute to Perrysburg, commute to other locations. That being the case, again, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't confident that they would be desirable for people.
Okay, thank you.
The federal government says that you can't deny anybody rent. If they can afford.
Could you come up to the microphone, please?
If they can afford to rent the place, you have to be able to rent it to them. So I keep hearing that it's going to be traveling nurses, of which the demand for that has dropped and the pay for traveling nurses has dropped as well. That they're going to be young professionals on temporary assignment. If I was a young professional, I wouldn't be in a tiny little efficiency style apartment next to a possibly health hazardous electrical source. But these people, if you are renting a 1-bedroom apartment, you are there short term. We are not here short term. This is transient housing. We are not transient people. We vote. We pay taxes. We belong here. We volunteer. We go to the churches here. We teach the children here. We are important. This is our families. This is our home. This is what makes Findlay a beautiful place to be. You say you didn't hear from anybody, but I emailed you and never got a response. I emailed all of you and got 0 response. We are what makes Findlay a beautiful place to be. I'm from Miami, Florida. My husband is from Chicago. We were blessed to be able to get a job at Marathon, where we have 5 children here who all went to Findlay City Schools. 2 of our sons work for Marathon. 2 of our teachers and our son-in-law, 2 of our daughters and son-in-law all teach for Findlay City. We know this community. That's about us. It's not about people who are coming in looking for a cheap place to stay for a short amount of time.
Andrew, what's the length of lease that you'll be offering?
We'll be doing minimum 12-month leases. So you know, that's not the case.
We don't work on a 12-month lease here.
My name is Andrea Baker. I didn't get the petition, but whoever's got it, add my name to it. I don't want it here. I paid a lot of money to buy my house. I used to live in an apartment. I purposely bought my house somewhere where there were no apartments. You're coming in and you're stealing my peace. You're stealing their peace. Crime doesn't have an income limit. Drugs don't have an income limit. How are you keeping that out? You're not, because you can't control it, because people are going to be people. Property values. What are you doing to our property values? It will affect it. I've researched it. In the first 1,000 feet, it significantly drops the property value of the people around it. You can put as much pretty flowers and landscaping around that as you want. It's still ugly. It is still going to be an issue. If you say you live around here, have you been to a high school football game?
Not in a long time.
If you have not been down there when Donnell is having a game, you can barely get one car down the roads half the time. Same thing with the college. And there are a lot of other schools that use this during the week. There's always something going on at that stadium. You have young children, like she said, on this practice field all the time. Who do you know how you're getting in there?
We
You
screen
don't.
tenants. We do
You
background and
don't.
credit check.
So not only are you creating an issue with property values because your investment is no better than mine or anybody's here, you're stealing our peace because there's going to be people coming and going all the time. You don't know who you're getting in there. Like she said, there was a trap house. We've already had these issues.
You don't know who you're getting into a house either. You can't just
No,
because
but
someone
at
lives in
least
an
it's-
apartment that they are crap.
I'm not saying they are, but at least it's more than a 12-month basis. And it's different when you're paying $900, $1,000 a month.
I live on Hurd Avenue too. There are tons of duplexes. There are apartment buildings. Duplexes. It's not a 24 unit. I'm just saying, don't use that as your
Time
argument.
out, folks.
It's one of an
This
argument.
this is a conversation with a chance to get the questions answered up here, and we don't want to have it deteriorate into a shouting match. So if you have questions for Andrew or Matt or folks on council, please ask away. Well, let's keep this respectful. Thank you.
Well, one of the things I'll address with that, so part of the reason I sent out that letter, and again, this should have gone out to like 36 different
37.
houses all around. Like, be happy to pass it around. I have it right here if you guys want to take a look at it while we're finishing
It's a
it.
little late now.
No, I sent it out 2.5 months ago. But
uh,
let me finish what I was going to say. What I was going to say is, I have made other properties that have done very nice and maintained them well. I would encourage anybody to go take a look at it.
Where are they?
I'm just wanting to hear, where do you live?
I live on Southwest Street, so I live
Okay.
right around the corner from
Okay,
it.
so you probably did not get one.
No.
This went out to the families that were notified. That being the case, I've not only invested a lot of money in the real estate that I've developed, I've maintained them well. It's in my best interest to have a nice place. I don't want to allow. One of the
Absolutely.
things I will
This-
say is, as far as the petition, we were receiving phone calls from people that were trying to get people to sign the petition, referencing it as riffraff that we're going to rent you, so on and so forth. So a lot of people that signed the petition may not have all the facts. We aren't doing anything subsidized.
That's not true.
Oh.
That is
Okay.
absolutely erroneous.
And again, that's what people were calling us saying. So,
Irregardless, I want my name on that petition because I don't want this in my neighborhood.
and again, I respect that. I'm not,
Why you want to put it in the middle of an established neighborhood by a school versus somewhere on the outskirts where they're building bike trails out there on 568 and 37, or out past where Sandusky Square is, or out on the north end where there's a lot of jobs out that way as well with close access to 75. There are a lot of different places that this could have went instead of in the middle of an established neighborhood by a school. And that is my concern. Duplex would be a completely different story. This is too much. It's too much and it creates too many issues, and I'm not sure that the traffic is something that should just be brushed off that easily. Because like I said, traffic, especially the weekends and games and during the school year, is pretty congested.
My name is Richard Park. I live on Douglas Parkway. I just, short and sweet, Brian Ballman is our councilman, I believe. He's not here tonight. I called
Yeah, he
him.
is. He's right there.
Is that you? I called Brian, and he got back with me 3 days later, and I was concerned about this project. Well, needless to say, were any of you asked by Brian how he felt about it? I wasn't, and he's on the planning commission,
No,
and he said,
he's not on the planning commission.
oh, well, I thought,
Planning and zoning committee.
okay. And he called me back, and the next day I read in the paper that it was approved. I just wonder about it. Do you have Metro in your other apartments?
No, I don't do Metro in anything.
Yeah. All right. I said my piece. That little girl right there, she's lived there for 30 years, and she's going to sell her house if that comes through.
Hi, I'm Kelly Foltz. I live right across. Like, you can see Tom's right here with the little fence. I'm the next house right next to the practice field. The traffic is atrocious during football games. It is horrible. I can't even see to get out of my driveway half the time. People are always parking me in. The city doesn't patrol it. No cops come down, or if they do, they don't ticket people when it says not to park there. You're going to bring a 24-unit building in here. People are going to be in and out of that building. They're going to have family. They're going to have friends visiting. You're going to have that whole street. I'm not saying 24 hours a day, but the traffic is going to become a nightmare. I don't know what kind of studies you have done. If you lived in that area, participated in the football games and the other activities that they do in that area, you would know what a nightmare it becomes. Donnell, when they have games, they park in the area where you are going to put this apartment building. They park there. They park in the Donnell practice field. Where are you going to put all that traffic? Where's it going to go? What's going to happen to the property value of my house? As I told you, this goes through, Andrew. My house is on the market. What am I going to lose because you're putting an apartment building there? I'm going to lose, not you. You're going to gain because you just put in 24 units. As you can tell, we are all very, very upset about this. Maybe some of you need to move in across the street and see what it is we're going to have to deal with if this gets approved. Do you want to switch houses for a year or two and see what it's like? Think about that. What would you do with your family, your grandchildren? I have grandchildren now. What would you do? Would you stay there? Would you want this for your grandchildren? People in and out? 24 units. It's different if it's a 2 or 3 duplexes. It's totally different. You're going to have so many people on that end of the street. Think about it, please, for us.
Someone behind me handed this to me, and it says, it was said that these one-bedroom apartment buildings will not be turned into hotels unless rezoned. Did we not just rezone to have the apartments built? Which brings to mind, yay, whoever you are. But that's just it. We have zones for a reason. We have zoning committees. We have city councils. Those are put into place for protection, to guarantee the continuity of our neighborhood. So when somebody comes in and they say, hey, we need it rezoned for our own personal financial gain, and by the way, your new rezone's not going to be good enough, we're going to need 2 variances on top of that. When he bought that property, he knew what it was zoned for. By the way, in order to have something rezoned, the application must be made by the owner of the property. It was made by the owner that was previous to him. I don't know the legalities of that.
Because that's
So when you buy it, you automatically buy the previous owner's applications?
when he applied for the rezoning, she was still the owner of record. Oftentimes, we have rezonings, the sale is contingent upon the rezoning.
But it has not been rezoned, yet it was already sold.
That's his business.
Yeah, that was just a risk I took.
Well, I just don't know the legality of it, because it says if you're going to rezone, the application for the rezoning has to be by the owner. But that owner is not the one who's asking for the rezoning. I don't know the legality of that. That also falls
Yeah.
into, I don't know.
At the time of the application, she was the owner. We don't allow, I can't go and put a rezoning on your property without you knowing it. So we always require the owner of record to sign off on the rezoning request.
Even though it hasn't been rezoned and she no longer owns it, there's no, let me just drop that, because I don't know how that goes. It just doesn't sound like if you have to be the owner to apply for the rezoning, and if it's contingent on the rezoning, but it's already been sold and it hasn't been rezoned. We have zones for a reason. And to ask to buy a piece of property knowing full well what its capacity is. And then coming in to the detriment of all of us and a whole lot of people who are not sitting here and saying, okay, we want to change what I just bought. I need you to change that. And then what you change that to is not good enough yet. That's garbage. We are at least as important.
Tom Romick, I live at 320 West McPherson. I have low water pressure. 2 crews have been out to my house in the last couple months. I have low water pressure. Just so you know.
Okay.
Can you turn this microphone up and down?
No, you have to speak closer to it.
All right, can you hear me now?
Thank you.
All right, did you hear me? I had low water pressure. One of the things that I hear what you're saying, you know, these are going to be high-end apartments. How do you really control how many people are in those apartments?
How many? Like how many per unit or?
Per unit, per.
Yeah, so again, most of the people that would be attracted to this would be single individuals or a couple or something like that. I only have to allow 2 people per bedroom. The max I would ever allow would be 2 people.
How do you control that?
Easily, you don't lease to people that have more than 2 people. The only scenario would be if there's a pregnant couple and they have a child. Outside of that, I've never had to have that as a problem.
You saying there's never ever going to be more than 2 people per apartment?
There will not be more than 2 people on a lease if someone had a guest over.
There will only be 2 people on the lease.
Correct.
But how do you control that? Pardon? But how do you even know? I mean, I've had a male person tell me one time that there are 1-bedroom apartments and their mail comes there for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different people.
Yeah. So and that could be the case if, I'll be honest, there are slumlords. I don't allow that on my properties. If I don't get rid of the bad apples immediately, that becomes my problem. So I wouldn't permit that to happen.
Okay, so these will never be subsidized housing.
Not as long as I own them, no.
You know, how long are you going to own it?
I plan on probably again, I'm developing in Findlay, Ohio. I've grown up in Arlington, but and live in Findlay. I plan on being here for a long
I
time.
understand that, but you can't guarantee it. You may have a heart attack tomorrow because all these people screaming at you.
That's all right.
You know?
I can handle it.
Yeah, okay. But, you know, and then what happens? You know, you and I can be good buddies, but 5-6 years from now, who's going to control it if you decide you want to move to California? I mean, I'd like to be able to trust you, but I'm not sure that, knowing the world we live in today, that's not going to be subsidized housing. We could have illegal aliens living in there. We could have, you know, drug traffickers. We could have a lot of different things. And you know, you can't guarantee me, you know, I've lived in the house I am in since 79, or 97. So it's a good year. I mean, 20 years from now, who's going to be living in there?
Yeah, of course, can't. But the intent is to own it a long time. One other thing too is being a good location. If that were to ever happen, it would be inclined that, you're going to be able to maintain better quality tenants than if this was in an inferior location, so on and so forth.
But I hear what you're saying. High-end apartments for $900 a month, right?
900 to 1,000, somewhere in there.
Granite countertops.
Mhm.
And what kind of appliances?
So we'll have all stainless steel appliances. We, again, are going to include the washer and dryer as well. It'll be probably LVT flooring, higher end finishes, lighting.
Elevators?
No elevators.
No elevators.
Correct.
Does that meet the ADA stuff?
Yes, it does, because the first floor would be the only ones that would need to be ADA.
So
If there were.
so you can get away with just having one floor for ADA?
No, it's actually less than that. There's a certain percentage that need to be ADA compliant, and
Okay.
this will be.
This building is subject to Wood County Commercial Building Code. Single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes are not subject to any building codes. Once you get to 4 units or more in a building, you are then subject to a building code. Obviously, so if this were to move forward, Wood County would be involved in every step of it, and they handle the ADA, fire suppression, firewalls, all those different types of things.
Hi, I don't have a lot to say, but I would like to talk a little bit about our neighborhood. It is a beautiful, lovely, quiet neighborhood. There are children everywhere. There are children up and down the streets. We kind of take pride in that. I really enjoy seeing them. The kids are all around the Donnell Pond. There are practices constantly in this area. Was there any consideration about the children when you decided to consider this big of a unit?
Consideration in what context?
About so the practice field is used a lot by kids of all ages. And we're now putting a lot of people right there on that practice field. I guess I'm wondering about safety. I mean, we all are very much used to the fact that kids are everywhere around there, and we really enjoy that aspect of our neighborhood. I guess I don't think that this many people are going to be invested in that as we are. I mean, I've been here about 5 years in this neighborhood, and that is one of the great things about it. And I guess I don't know exactly what kind of consideration, but was there any thought at all into, we are bringing this many people right here to this practice field, right next to the pond, right next to the middle school?
Well, I lived on Southern Hurd Avenue, 1313 Hurd Avenue for 5 years. So right behind the pond, very familiar with the neighborhood. I didn't make any connections to the apartments being inherently dangerous to children of the neighborhood. And I recommended approval of the rezoning and the site plan. And I just wanted to add that I have intimate knowledge of the neighborhood. So I just wanted to throw that in there,
Okay.
that I'm not unfamiliar with the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
I can't move as fast as you all. Hi, how are you all doing? I'm Dave Peschel. See that house right there, straight ahead? That's Mr. Freshcorn's. I'm right next to it. Now then, my question is, how are you going to guarantee my privacy if I'm in the backyard? Because that's going to be sitting back, and I'll bring pictures tomorrow. You literally can see it. I mean, it looks like it's in your backyard. What about Mr. Freshcorn, Mr. Stars, and my privacy, and how are you going to protect that?
So I spoke with, I believe his name is Jeremy. Is it?
Oh, yes, Mr.
Yeah, so I spoke with him at length, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. He wasn't concerned. I had a good conversation with him, and we actually worked out a detail plan on the. That's all right.
Holy cow.
All right, so if you're looking at the northeast corner, so the top right, there will be a fence going along there. There's an easement, and I didn't want to put additional landscaping there because ultimately it probably would get dug up at some point. So I worked with him to put basically some landscaping on his just on the other side of that the fence basically to add additional just screening right there, and he was very good to work with and cooperative. He isn't concerned about it. He told me he was not concerned about it.
He just moved in there though.
As far as say that again.
He just moved in there. I've been there for a while. So.
Okay. You had brought up this point maybe a month and a half ago at the meeting as well. Since then, your concern was how the stairs go up along the east side.
Right. I mean, you can see it's just a.
So what I did to try to address that, we're going to put basically screening along the entire east side so that it's not looking over any of the neighbors, which before it was not. So that, I mean, that should be far enough back. And with that, there is no windows on that side. That is completely screening off basically the stairwell. So there shouldn't be anyone like looking
Okay.
down.
What are you doing for sound? I mean, wintertime, 3 o'clock in the morning, plowing the parking lot. I mean, there's people trying to sleep, people across the street, headlights, lights coming from people's windows. Well, you're always going to have that, but cars coming in and out of that parking lot. Eventually, the headlights are going to come out towards them.
Yeah. So as part of the way it was designed, if you look at it, so that the headlights will go basically into the field. We tried mirroring it and flipping it to the other side, but I don't know her name. Over here, it would have gone directly at your house. So we wanted to obviously not do that. So we looked at doing it on the west side. That would have been across from the neighbor. Middle, that still was not ideal. On the east side was going to be the best for the headlights and whatnot, and the traffic to not be directly across from neighbor.
Okay. And I know that we went over drainage and we were kind of like beating that to a dead cat kind of thing, but I understand your calculations for drainage because I do drainage. I make customized drainage. And the dry retention. But there are those situations where you're going to have a lot of rain at one time, especially if there's frost or the ground's frozen. It won't suck up that water, as you know. Where is your overflow?
As of right now, it will overflow and go into the public roadway. The water, there's a natural lay of land right now. Everything drains from back here up to the road. We understand, the ground, and if it's hard, clay doesn't absorb water.
Right.
When we design this detention basin, we are not bringing in infiltration into the ground, so everything is being captured. So there's no underground system, there's no filtration that way, you understand.
Right.
So everything will be contained within that. The 100-year storm event will be contained in there, and if it does, it'll go naturally into the roadway.
Which road? The McPherson road?
McPherson, yes.
Okay.
Everything drains towards McPherson. It does not drain down to Lake Cascades.
Okay. We already have an issue with storm water once in a while in the during the winter time with everything plugging up, basically snow and stuff, especially in the spring rains. So, I mean, granted, we'll have to try and keep that clear, but that does start puddling, especially right around Mr. Starr's house. And I don't think he'd appreciate a pond in front of his house, especially because his lawn's a heck of a lot nicer than mine.
Agree. The other thing I wanted to kind of address, you were talking about, privacy and stuff like that.
Right.
The intent is there is some mature trees and stuff back here. The intent is to try to maintain those as much as possible. That's why the building is kind of shifted over. There will be a privacy fence along the east property line. So if cars were coming this way backing up, they would be shielded by the 8-foot tall fence there. As stated earlier, there will be a landscape mound here with some trees and shrubs to protect any type of light to try to leave the site. So we're doing the best we can to try to maintain the natural tall mature trees and to put up screening along the northeast side. And there's actually going to be a small berm with some fencing along the west side to help shield the substation as well.
Just a small history lesson for what it's worth. After the 2007 flood, the city went from requiring either 10 or 20-year detention up to now they require a 100-year detention. So the standards after the 2007 flood were elevated much higher, that the site has to control a 100-year flood event. Now, there are always instances, if you get 3 inches of rain in 20 minutes, no detention system, will capture that. But this is designed at a much higher level than most things that were built around. In fact, we have some neighborhoods, subdivisions that were built where the roadways are part of their drainage calculation. So this is built to the new standard, which is several times higher than what the old regulations were.
Right. I just don't see how a dry retention is going to work when you go a foot underneath ground and you're hitting sheer rock, because that used to be part of the quarry area and such like that. And that's why the quarry is there, is because it's good rock. But it's solid. You go down a foot and you're not going to go very far. It's not going to seep in as much as you think it is. So that's one of my concerns with the drainage, because I know I can't plant a garden too deep because I just can't get through that rock. As far as your construction goes, I'm not sure how it'd be a good foundation, I guess, but I'm not sure how you're going to get your piping through and such like that too. Hopefully you're not planning on blasting that out like they used to do, but that's your price's problem, not mine, I guess.
The city does not allow blasting.
Right. They used to.
Correct, yeah, but I believe at this one here, they don't allow it anymore.
Okay. No, they got jackhammers that can go through that pretty good. All right, I guess that's all my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions from, you want to bring this down here, Brooks?
No, I can stand. Oh, okay. Thank you. COVID did this to me. My name is Brooks Bossy. I live at 210 East McPherson. I've lived there around 34 years. I'm against this project. Could you bring I have 3 points to make. I don't know which one to start with first. Let's do aesthetics. I don't know if you all caught Linda's comment, a blue roof in. I'm sitting here going, if you paint that red, that's going to look like a red roof in to me. Those white things, are those columns or are those doors? Those are doors. That looks like a motel to me. That just looks, that doesn't fit the neighborhood at all. And then the big white triangles. It's like, look at me, I'm a motel. So all I can say there is, if you gotta have it, please disguise it. Don't paint it bright blue and white. Paint it gray or something and disguise the thing as much as you can.
To be fair, I agree that the blue reflected in these renderings, not the exact, it's a dark navy blue. It's not it makes it look a lot, especially the other 2D rendering. I was disappointed. It is not going to be a bright blue, I assure you. It's a dark
You
navy
can't
blue.
paint gray or...
It has gray. It's contrast between some gray.
The blue is still an eyesore. And the white doors. Oh my God, disguise the doors. Don't make it look like a motel. Please. And you've plopped it between probably the most beautiful park in city and an assisted living thing. Quality on both sides of you. I go back to someone make comment, really? Did you have to build it on McPherson? And aesthetics. I'll keep it short there, but you heard me. Don't do the blue and the white. It just stands out. Hide the doors if you can. Disguise them. Just make it not look like a motel. At night, I'm going to guess this thing's going to look like a car lot. It's going to be lit up, and whoever lives at the fence and the gray, you're going to have light coming in your house all night long. Are you illuminating the parking lot with tall lights coming down?
So there has to be some for the parking. However, around the building, rather than everybody having a light right by the front door and it something on, something off, we have some soffit lighting that is photo cell. So it'll come on, but the goal is to give enough light for security to feel comfortable without being bright.
Well, I guarantee you at night, this thing's going to be lit up like a used car lot. And we're not going to like it. I feel sorry for the people next door. You're now going to have permanent light coming in at night. Lastly, can't you modify it so you route the traffic onto 6th Street, whatever that parkway is? Thank you. Cascade. Put them out on that street, because I'm hearing all this. I didn't think about Hurd and Stadium and Summit, and because if these are marathoners, they're going to be charging down Hurd or down to Main Street. So folks on Hurd, feel sorry. Throw them out onto the Lake Cascades Parkway, and they can go to the light or go to Western, whatever. So enough on aesthetics. But the dark blue and the white doors, it says motel. The next thing, safety. Have you all pulled out of East McPherson turning left? Good luck. I'm so glad we didn't get the McDonald's. We have 7, count them, 7 egress and whatever in a half a block. You got 6th Street, you got Speedway, you got the bank, and you got the dentist office, and you got the McPhersons. You're on East McPherson. You try to turn left, you're looking across. You look at this, there. You're looking at Speedway, and then you're looking at 60. You're timing the lights, because when that thing turns green, those folks start taking off. Yeah, sometimes I cringe when I pull out of East McPherson turning left. You're just hoping to God you see a car. You had 50 more cars coming in and out, friends and whatever, and they don't use their turn signals. You don't know which direction they're going to turn. So you got to wait for them to feed off before you feel safe. So city, you're on notice. You're creating a safety issue at that intersection. You know, the first few accidents, they're on you guys. You've been notified. Oh God, don't do that. We don't want a light there. Enough on safety. Respect. You got 2 votes in your pocket. Probably thought you were safe. Time to put it in the paper. That's how I look at it. That's disrespect. Put it in the paper early. So I found out about it when it was in the Courier. I got really, really, really upset. But I thought, you know, the government, they're going to push this through. This is a done deal. Little old me. It's not going to make a... I've only been in this council chambers twice. I don't do this, but I'm so upset I'm here. So I feel like we've all been disrespected by not putting that in the paper earlier. You got 1 vote left. It's tomorrow. And I have a feeling I know which way it's going to go. So another thing. Speedway wanted to change a kiosk gas station to a full-size Speedway gas station. And I was agreeable to it if they built a nice brick wall around it. They kind of surrounded themselves, and they bought 3 houses so they could expand. And they promised, oh yeah, we're going to take care of these 3 properties. It's going to look great. The 2 houses on East McPherson are abandoned, and they're looking like they're abandoned, which just really, really upsets me. So to the developer, when you tell us, oh, these are 1-year leases and things, I know how things change. I fear, a strong fear, they're going to become low income at some point. Here come the drugs. Here comes the traffic. Someone said I-75. I get really upset when you say, oh, they're 1 year leases. I feel it's like insult to my intelligence. I see right around it. I would advise you not to say that anymore, because we see right through this 1 year lease, because things change. Every time I go by those 2 abandoned houses, I feel cheated. I've lost respect for them. I worked for Marathon. I did a lot of computer systems for Speedway. I know the people down in Enon. Well, now it's 7-Eleven. So I don't trust you. Sorry about that. Based on how Speedway has treated. I don't trust AP. They plopped 3 industrial power poles on East McPherson with guy wires in someone's front yard. I don't trust the city. You've removed 40% of our shade trees and no replanting. Yet, the mayor has referenced McPherson's twice lately in the paper. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. That's my opinion. I may be wrong.
Hi, I'm Rob Skasny. I live at 210 Sherman Drive. Could you go back to the picture, please? Okay, I'm just looking at that, and I'm not trying to understand it because it's deceiving. Because it looks like you got a lot of space between the substation and that gray house. So I'm just wondering, I thought you guys should have brought the blueprints and printed some out before I get a better understanding, because I can't, even by looking at here with my glasses, I can't read it. And that detention pond.
Yeah, there's the site, what we review, this site plan is the basis for what's reviewed by the city.
Right, but I would have liked to have a blueprint where I can understand it better. Because a detention pond, okay, you're saying it's a 100-year flood or whatever, but say you get, the weather's changing all around the world. What if it rains 10 inches? Is that going to hold it, or is it going to overflow? Because you said it releases slow.
Correct. No, there won't be, 10 inches of rain, depending on how long. There's no detention pond in Ohio that will handle that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's going to overflow, and it's going to disperse in the road, or it's going to flood people's yards. It could happen.
Yeah, no, there are limits to what any detention basin can handle.
In my understanding, a while back, water treatment plant, aren't we at the max on that, or something about we had to make it bigger some year?
We do about 6 million gallons. The plant can handle 16 million. One of the city's great wishes is that we had a big water user come to town because we have so much extra capacity.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Could we go back to the original picture that you had up of the that one, yes. Curious, is there going to be an extra fire hydrant or something added in here? Or, if there was ever, a problem in that area, God forbid, how is that going to be addressed? There is a fire hydrant to the right of it?
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
But the fire department has a person assigned who reviews every site plan, looking for all the different fire aspects, and he did review this plan.
Okay.
Could you hand me the mic? I got one.
Sure.
Thank you. I forgot one more item on the disrespect list. Sir, your signs. I drive by that often. Where is your sign? How far off the road is it?
They were right next to the sidewalk, about right in here. They're the real estate signs.
What does it say on there?
In general, this site is going to City Planning Commission, and then it has our office number to call for more information.
So big deal, right? Not, hey, this is going to be a 21 unit, blah, blah, blah. I think that's disrespectful for us. I'm sorry, your site. They need to be bigger, and you need to tell us what it's going to be for us to be notified. So I feel disrespected by your site. They need to be bigger and a little bit more information. Thank you. Because I feel like you're looking out for us, and you're not.
So, as I mentioned, time flies. Probably 6 years ago, the city only notified surrounding property owners. There were no signs. And I've worked in other communities, and like, it would be nice if we put out signs. So it was under Mayor Mahalik. So we started putting out the signs. And then we expanded the 250 feet. There, many communities don't do as much as Findlay does to notify the surrounding property owners.
To do the right way. The zoning commission is planning to vote for this. That would be awesome. But I feel like he snuck it under us.
The notices that go out do have a copy of the agenda, and it's highlighted which one pertains to them.
I saw it after 2 votes. After you got it, you thought, this is a done deal, I think. My personal.
John Vandermolen, 311 Stadium Drive. All I can say, a few comments here. This just doesn't belong here in this neighborhood. It just doesn't belong. I can tell you're a good investor. That's great. This zoning, bad idea, changing it. It's a hotel, motel. Take it down the road, turn right, south, go down to the barbecue where there's a lot of land, and put it there. There's plenty of land at other places, not in the middle of a neighborhood with a school, foundation, all that. Just, it's in the wrong place. Consider that.
I have one quick question. This is quick. Why didn't you put it in an area that is already zoned multifamily? I mean, why
I'm with
would-
the city. We don't do development.
So is that you, Mr.
Yeah.
Yates, that picked this
Yeah, so
spot? Well,
there
why
is-
didn't you go to a
So I looked at one other location. It was in the flood zone. It was
well, I'm going to be in the flood zone after this.
far inferior. This one, again, it might have been whenever Tony Iridy was mayor. I think they had changed some things as far as M1, and there are, frankly, very few options to do this, to be honest. So the only path to do something like this is to attempt to rezone as far as, to do something like this, as an investor and for my prospective tenants, I want a great location. I see the same thing you guys see in this location.
It was a great location.
And I understand. Everybody has fears and concerns that it's going to be renting to poor tenants and that it'll be subsidized. All I can say is, again, if I would be happy to meet with anybody individually, discuss things further, and show you my other properties. That's not what I...
Mr. Yates, I saw your other properties, and honestly, after I went out to LB and saw those, I didn't feel that there was going to be a problem until I found out you were moving that abomination from Grand Avenue over to McPherson. It's like when I rode by that thing, I thought, why isn't this condemned?
Yeah, so again, to explain that a little further, the decking system that's coming out, it's a mansard style building, not a personal fan. All the roofing is coming off. It's got an old roof anyways. The only thing that's staying is the shell. And that is what makes sense. So that being moved, all new siding, all new interior, exterior. The only thing that will be there is the framing, drywall installation. So again, you would never be able to tell that was an old building.
Who's paying?
Build it right where it's at.
Yeah.
Because
Rebuild it there.
well, I can't why is attempting to demolish.
Who's paying to move it?
I am.
Is there any AP, what is it, ARPA funds or CARE funds
No, I'm
or
paying for it.
state, local?
Nope,
Okay.
I'm paying for it.
Okay, well, why don't you not move it and just do something classy and maintain your integrity by building something that we know you're capable of building? Because that just does not, I know it's been said over and over again, does not fit where you're trying to put it. It's the wrong building on the wrong lot.
Hey there, Andrew. So I live just actually would be right over here in the picture, just on the stadium side of the practice field, and I understand, there's a need for something like this, and I honestly think you'd probably make a good investment and make a good looking apartment complex. My major concern is that right where it says right turn 20 miles an hour, the 4-lane road turns into a 2-lane road, and then it funnels up to Summit, over to Hurd, and then of course My Road Stadium. And just from my own anecdotal experience, as I go to leave, I frequently will go up and take Summit, and then when I do that, it is, I don't know, it's probably 20% of the time I'll actually have to stop. People park their cars on the side, so you got to stop and wait for traffic to come around, or they wait for you to pass. I mean, that's already happening without adding these, all these extras. And I know that, if it's a growing area, you just deal with issues like that. And I just feel like, some of you knew the house that made so many problems in our neighborhood a couple years ago. That was our direct neighbor, and that was a 12-month lease as well. And you do your best to stop things like that from happening, but things happen, things slip by, and I just feel like it's not a 0% danger to the immediate area. And you'll do your best. Certainly don't think you're a slumlord or anything like that. But, it just raises concerns for me, certainly, mainly because of the traffic. That's probably where I'm most concerned. And then also, of course, property values is a big concern as well, being that we've lived there for about 5 years. And I guess I don't have a specific question, but I would just say that, as people are leaving this, a good portion of them may go down to Main Street from there. But I would say, probably not less than 40% are going to take Summit and Hurd and Stadium and maybe try to avoid the traffic that would be turning right there trying to go to Main Street. So anyway, that's my concern, Thank you.
I have one last quick question. There's some apartments on Sandusky called St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Are they yours?
They are.
Okay.
I did not name them after 10 years.
I know there's no golf course there, but okay. So you've done.
So I bought those about 2 years ago. Completely redid the insides.
Okay. I mean, there's no comparison between those and these.
In what way?
Huh?
The
way they look. That's all. I just. Thank you.
I just want to know, I noticed there are some excavating equipment there and a porter john. Whose is that?
I don't know. I drove by today and so I as well wondered the same thing.
Pardon?
I don't know.
AEP, the substation, yeah, the porta potty and the things mean they're going to do some work, because the day after that showed up, there's 3 trucks and 6 guys with hard hats looking at paperwork and pointing in the substation. Seen that before.
Okay. And can I see another picture in the back of it? Those are all balconies there? And there's going to be 24 balconies, I take it, right?
Hey, right there.
So you're overlooking 6th Street there. Are you right on the back edge where it drops off, or how far away from are you?
No, the setback is 40.
What's the step back?
The back of these houses will be approximately 35 to 40 feet from where the ground drops off.
Okay. And You having any, there's supposed to be stairs coming down there, they can go down, I heard, or
No,
is
no.
that true or false?
At this point, there is no access to Lake Cascades.
How about
Parkway.
any drainage going down?
Drainage will not go down there. It's all going to come, all of the roof drains and everything, parking lot will drain directly to the detention basin that has been designed for this site.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Just got one last question. I mean, this is easy one though. Make it easy. When you're figuring out your zoning, how's that radio tower playing in effect now? Because you can't rezone it as high density for the radio tower, technically. I mean, on the books you can't. So how is that going to get rezoned? Are you going to grandfather that in or something?
It's not on his property.
It's not on his property, but it's part of the zoning area, isn't it?
Well, everything has zoning. So,
Right. But
um,
that's still in that zone area that you plan on zoning. I mean, you're not just going to do it just for that one property, are you?
Yeah, no, the rezoning request is just for, oh, it is on your property?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and the gentleman at the radio station was here, I think the first.
I know, I
meeting.
remember him there.
And basically it was stated, I believe, that, I forget what it was, but it's something that he was grandfathered.
Dave's concern was that he would not be able to rebuild the tower if
Thank you.
something happened to it because of its proximity now to the residential
Right.
that would be built and
It's legal non-conforming. He would have two years to reestablish if the tower fell down or something.
Right, but that has to be a separate vote then. You can't just grandfather that in.
no, his if the tower is legally permissible now, but with
Right.
this, but the rules on towers in the proximity to residential, with this residential, if it were to be built, then the tower would not, he couldn't build the tower like they're new. And so the concern is if something catastrophic happens to it, is he able to replace it there? And he would be able to reestablish that what was now a non-conforming use, and he would have a year or two to begin construction to redo it, and that placated Dave's and WFIN's concern. Because that tower does serve the radio station, actively serves the radio station.
Right, but that's supposed to be a different zoning.
That's not affected by this, it's a different property.
It's part of the same property.
It is, but it,
It overlaps. It overlaps itself some weird way. Well, I would highly think that you would take that into consideration, and if that does need a separate zoning vote, maybe you need to look at that.
it doesn't, and so Andrew, the tower is located on your property
Yes.
with an access easement, with an easement for it to be there. So even in the office district, it's not necessarily permissible. So essentially, it's legal non-conforming. If anything happens to it, they have 2 years to reestablish it. And then the owners of it were satisfied with that.
Okay, that clears things up, kind of like mud, but it clears it up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't know how you can ask it without speaking.
I didn't hear what Andrew said about why he won't put it on Grand Avenue.
So the part of the whole reason that this even came about was because the YMCA intended to demolish that building. So my thought was, well, if I could save them money and move it to a new location. So
You can't rebuild where it is.
No. They're intending with that parcel, along with a couple others, for their own. So they want to keep the ground. They
But
just.
my concern is, when Linda brought the petition around, that was the first time I heard about it. I have water in my basement at 200 West McPherson, right down the street from that, and I think this is a waste of time, because you guys have already decided what's gonna happen. I think it's cut and dry, and it's gonna be voted on, go through.
That's my concern about, I don't know how all of this happened so fast without any regard to us.
One
So,
day I got a meeting, but
yes,
tomorrow night.
yes. So, and that's part of my issue. We have been supporters of the YMCA. We had a family membership for a quarter of a century. I love the YMCA. I love this community. I want to see there be good housing. I want there to be young, good investors. You're what we need. You're going to, carry us on. But when the mayor is on the zoning commission as the chairwoman, and she's on the YMCA board, and giving him the building for $1 saves the YMCA money, and when I speak to her, she's not looking at me as a constituent. She's saying, what do you want me to, I need you to negotiate with the investor. What is that? That's not what our city government is supposed to do. Our city government is not supposed to dance around behind us and make deals, sit on multiple committees, worry about violations of ethics and conflict of interest, and have a city council come along and say, okay, fine, we're done.
So
That's not what we do.
but here is what I know.
need to shut up. I keep saying I won't stand up again.
But here is what we do. I mean, and you can argue if it needs to be a better process, send a letter to your council person that we need to
It doesn't help. I sent letters to every single one and no one responded.
well, if I could finish my thought.
I apologize.
If you don't like the process of our public notification, which it's not as good as some cities, but it's better than most in Ohio. Dublin, Ohio will notify more people. You're shaking your head. Do you have some feedback on that?
That doesn't help. That doesn't help.
You can do a better job.
But even that won't help. I
Your
think,
signs could do a better job.
and Mr. Yates, is there any way that you would reconsider what you were placing on that lot?
What I would consider, I don't think the door color and some of the aesthetics certainly into account. But this,
One story.
no, I mean,
Maybe
it,
2 stories.
How about sticking in the zone of the property that you bought?
Yeah.
That's an idea.
Yes.
Who looks out for us?
Two-story.
That's right.
It just doesn't, it blends in.
So today it's zoned office. So obviously, office does not allow for multifamily. It does not allow for residential. Today you cannot build a house on that property. You can build a laboratory, you can build an office building, you can build a doctor's office. So those, I have concerns about those types of uses for the neighborhood also.
Dr. Bateson's right on the corner of McPherson and South Main Street. You don't even know she's there. That's a dentist office.
Yeah, I'm well
She's
aware.
there. So I would,
I'm well aware she's there with all the McDonald's things we had.
well,
It's not
but you
like-
would rather have her there across the street than what's going on.
Sure.
You don't buy a piece of property knowing you can't build what you want to build and make all of these little connections outside through people on multiple boards and this and that and the other. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and we'll change the zoning so you can put something there that our government has already deemed not appropriate. So it's just ridiculous. None of it, it's all icky. All of it's icky.
Now, I take exception to that. We've done public notices as is,
Because a lot of people here said they didn't know.
I understand.
You guys need to do better.
Yes.
So
Do better.
I cannot do, listen, can I please speak? I cannot do more than what is in the ordinance. I can't pick and choose which projects I'm going to send out 600 letters to versus 20 letters to.
Bigger sign on what you're gonna build.
I can't, I mean, this is the,
I'll do it for you.
Excuses.
No, the
You do
developer,
this because
the
of this.
developer,
You do
if
that.
he would have put a picture of that on there, when this whole thing started,
Yes.
like they do for banks or, we're gonna put a building in here, or we're gonna, whatever we're gonna do, and it's gonna be paid for by this bank or whatever, and it's a big picture. You put a sign that's about, I don't know, 3 foot by 2 foot.
it's the standard real estate sign frame.
Please don't hide behind
And
an
it
ordinance.
just says,
Insults our
this
intelligence.
property is gonna be rezoned, or up for rezoning, basically what it says.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it says. So people go by there and that really doesn't mean much to them.
I mean, I got a solution. Why couldn't they put it up the Imperial House? That's a big lot. They can put up big, go as high as they want.
Develop that area, we're the,
Again, the city is not the developer. The city is not looking for sites. They came to the city. So, I think I'll wrap things up. We're about an hour and 45 minutes. Again, the vote, the tail end of this process, which started in May, is tomorrow at City Council. And the meeting starts at 6. The public meeting for this will start at 5:55.
And there'll be an opportunity to speak at both the public hearing and at the city council meeting. There are forms that'll be out in the hallway to fill out if you want to speak at the council meeting, and hand them to the President Harrington. Well, the public hearing goes as long as is necessary to have people who want to address the issue. And then immediately following the public hearing, starting no earlier than 6 o'clock, will be city council. And there is a form to fill out, name and address, and the topic that you want to speak on. And those should be turned into Council President Harrington, sitting at the back corner, although with the mayor out of town, it'll be most likely myself running the meeting. And so just, look for me, and I'll make sure you have the right forms. And then the public hearing or the public comment is early in the council meeting. We'll work through our agenda, and this will then be on during the ordinances at the latter part of the meeting. Yes, sir.
You might want to remind them to be concise because they only have 13 minutes, or what was the minutes that they're allowed to speak on?
It's 4 minutes.
Only
Yeah.
3 speakers and only 4 minutes.
Three speakers and 4 minutes.
We have never, council has never prevented anybody from speaking. If there's a lot of folks that want to speak on it, we'll welcome to have you. The purpose of the council meeting is to conduct the city's business. The reason you have the limits on there is so that you can't just simply filibuster away and line up with 100 people, and so that the city can't actually do its business. And I think one of our ordinances is going to be some emergency work on a collapsing storm sewer at the corner of, you'll love this, Brooks, East McPherson and South Main Street. So. No, the doors will be open. And that water main break collapsed a storm sewer in the area, so we're going to be digging in there probably later this week.
They did a great job, maybe.
So,
I have a
yes, ma'am.
If it passes tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
What is our recourse?
I-
Is there an appeal process? Do we have to go to common pleas court? What do we do?
I think you can, like with any city legislation, you can petition to referendum, and I don't know the exact details on it, but
I believe you need 10%. You need certified signatures. I believe it's 10% of the population that just voted in the last gubernatorial election.
It was extremely easy, just so you know, extremely easy to get these 171 signatures. We only had, a day and a half to do it, or we would have had a lot more.
And at no time did we ever use word riffraff or anything else.
No.
We're not
And that's fair. And
allowed to use
I'm just telling you what.
equitably.
Told me.
So, yeah, I don't
All
know
right.
where that came from.
thank you, everybody, for coming out today. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.